Hello and welcome to another episode of Keeping Up with Kendall. Hi, my name is Dr. Tony Cruz. I'm the campus president here at the Kendall campus, and we're coming to you live from the fabulous learning resources here at the Kendall campus. And our special guest today is the fabulous Lucy Lopez.
Thank you. Thank you for that warm introduction. I am pretty fabulous.
You are.
Yeah, there's something about me.
You are. So thank you for being here with us.
Aw, thanks for having me.
It's a pleasure to have you here with us. And
this is my first visit to the Kendall campus.
well, so what do you think?
I think this is like really amazing. Like, it doesn't feel like you're in school.
That's a good thing?
Yeah, I think
right.
that's a good thing.
Okay.
And also, I like how it's like hidden.
Yeah.
You go to other campuses and you're like, oh, there's that campus, but this one I had to find it. Was I lost? Probably.
A little bit, but
lost.
you did find it, though.
I found it. I
found
found it.
it.
And I got parking like this.
Okay. Well, that's a really big thing.
I know. I
Parking.
remember I went to Miami-Dade North, and finding campus was the equivalent to finding a winning lottery ticket. It was either going to happen or not.
Right. Well, today you won the lottery.
I won the lottery.
And now you're here with us, and we're going to have a little bit of a conversation.
Okay, great.
About you.
Oh,
It's
okay.
going to be all about you today. So, tell us a little about yourself. I know that a lot of you're a media personality. People know you in the community very, very well, at least as the personality. But well, what's your journey? What was your academic, personal journey to where you are today?
So, well, it's a lot.
Well,
to
give us as much as you'd like to give us today.
But I mean, I'm a Miami kid. I grew up in Hialeah. I went to public schools. Went to Palm Springs Middle. Went to a Catholic high school.
Okay.
Because I had this thing where I had like straight A's, but my conduct was horrible. And my mom tried to get me into Hialeah High, and the principal at the time was like, if your kid shows up, she's gonna like be a gangster. Like, we can't have that here.
Okay.
So my parents sacrificed and sent me to a private school, which I don't see the difference, quite frankly. Because I don't know, it was like your parents at the time are like, no, vas a ser una delincuente.
Right.
But went to Pace, graduated when I was 16. Kind of had to wait a while before going to college. Did that, went to Dade North. And it's interesting now, like we were just speaking off air, like you reflect on that college life of yours now in my 40s. And I'm like, I would hope that my children kind of just understand college life a little better than I did.
Sure.
I was just, you need to go to school. There was no like, this is what you could study, this is what you could do. It was more like, you gotta go to school and it better not be expensive.
Yeah.
So went to Miami-Dade North, luckily stumbled into the film program there.
Okay.
And
Well, how was that? How did you?
It was the best experience of my life. I loved going to Dade. I loved it. I loved every experience. I didn't understand, like, I never got or fed into the, oh, you went to Dade? Like, I never fed into that. I was very proud that I was able to achieve higher learning and be in that environment of creatives that I just thought was reserved for kids who live like in New York or California. So it was a great experience and helped mold me into who I am today professionally.
That's awesome.
So I'm really grateful to Miami-Dade North. I know we're in Kendall right now, but
well, we're all one family,
but I know you guys are a family.
Yeah, we're a family. So Miami-Dade College has changed the lives of so many people.
Yeah.
And we keep on doing that. And I think also for first-generation college students, I'm a first-generation college student, just like you were, and when you don't have that guidance, right? And you don't have the expertise, right, of a parent, you got to rely on sometimes your gut, sometimes on what maybe just luck, right? And in your case, at least you landed somewhere.
I landed somewhere
that was really good.
And I was really fortunate enough to fall into like these classes that were being led by these teachers who were cool enough to be like, hey, maybe you shouldn't take this class, like take this class instead because of what you're thinking and what's brewing up in your head. And I'll never forget that, like those conversations I would have with teachers that, it's not that my parents couldn't, it was just different. Like
different.
My parents were blue collar working.
Different, and also different system, different country.
Absolutely.
Everything is different.
Yeah.
So yeah, I know they, like my parents, they did what they could, right?
Exactly.
And so, but nonetheless, you found some really great professors that cared about you.
Totally.
And that makes a huge difference.
And we're
in our
like my
lives.
cheerleaders.
Yeah.
And it's like I had cheerleaders at home, my parents and my family, but to get it from somebody, it was just different. It's like a different vibe. When a teacher looks at something you accomplished, a project you've been working on for, sometimes these film projects would take like a whole month or something, and then they would look at it and give them their stamp of approval. Yeah. And that to me was like all I needed. Yeah. And I think that's where, when I eventually made it onto the airwaves in South Florida, that validation was, I would get it from a phone call from a listener, or, the Taco Bell on 49th, which is no longer on 49th Street in Hialeah.
Yes, unfortunately. I did see that it closed the other day.
The most depressing thing in the world. But anyways.
I think it closed like a month ago.
It's horrible. Yeah. So the lady at the time would like recognize me by my voice.
Wow.
And that to me was like a massive accomplishment. Like, here I am at the Taco Bell, and the lady recognizes my voice. I'm winning at life right now, kids. So those little nuggets of validation really solidified in me that I did make the right choices in entering entertainment and being a writer and a creative. Like that was important. So those are important things to me.
Definitely, and you've done a lot of that over the years. I know you spent a lot of time on radio.
Yeah, 25 years.
25 years in radio, so that's a huge, that's a career, right? A whole
it's
career on radio. So that's
very loyal.
Yeah, and so that's amazing. And then I know now you're doing other things.
Yeah.
I know you're big in social media. I know you have a lot of different things going on. So I just want to have you like kind of share some of those things, because there's so many of them. If I started making a list, I think I would miss something. So I wanted to kind of talk about that.
I gotta tell you, I try to surround myself with, as my husband calls it, the youth. And and this is what they're all here, by the way. All the youth is filming us right now.
They're filming us. They're here in the in the library here. They're studying. Yeah.
One of my favorite things about, I have my creative collaborator is, she's like, I call her an elder millennial. And one of the things that she's taught me is, I think the older you get in this world that I'm in, you all of a sudden, if you come from like a certain generation, you start to like cap yourself off, and you're like, well, this is the only thing I know how to do. And I remember I sat down one day and I made a list of things that I learned in my 25 years on radio and in broadcasting, broadcasting in general. And I started realizing, oh, well, I can do this and I can do that. And then she's always the one that will look, she was like, oh, and you can also do this and you can also do that. And it was like, it's like refreshing. I love surrounding myself with like younger train of thought, because I don't know, like they're like, even when my daughters, like they'll look at reels that I'll create, and my kid who's 9 years old will look at me and be like, I think you shouldn't use that filter. I think you should need to use this filter, and this is why. And like little things like that have been helping me figure out that I'm now an entrepreneur. I like to call myself a momcaster. I talk a lot about my kids. I have a podcast, I have a newsletter, I have a website, and I have clients, which means that I'm a brand ambassador for Navarro Discount,
I've seen that.
Checkers, and these are all clients that I've, been able to solidify relationships within the past year on my own. And I'm working with like ad agencies, and currently in negotiations to be a creative director for a pretty big company here in Miami.
That's awesome.
And those are things that when you're really sure about what you're doing creatively and you have a vision, I've learned since leaving the radio that you gotta really dream big. You can't stay under an umbrella for too long. You can't stay under like these constraints that not only other people put on you, but you start believing them.
Yeah. And that's the worst part.
That's the worst
It's
part.
like when you start believing it, yeah. And then there are a lot of detractors, right? I mean, there's always going to be so many detractors, and those detractors come from different perspectives. There's people that have been very successful that can be detractors, but there's also a lot of people that have not been also that successful that can also be detractors, right? And,
yes.
And so you get it from both ends.
Yeah, you do. I try really hard to just. One of the biggest lessons I learned at Dade was like to keep my blinders on. And I've always been that kind of person. I've always, you have different kinds of creatives. You have like the chaotic creative, you have, rock star creative. You have like all these like little creatives that they work under their own Mad Hatter kind of vibe.
Right.
I'm a structured creative, which is both torturous and refreshing. And I learned that while at Dade, that was like my superpower. And a couple of professors like pointed that out to me, and that kind of structured creative, if you go out into the real world, translates to creative director, translates to producer, translates to EP on a project. That's what that translates to.
Right.
But I'm also a talent. I can stand in front of a camera and I can do my thing. I can edit, film, and sound. So there's a lot of things that I bring to the table that before I wasn't able to. I used it all, but
now you're bringing it together.
I'm bringing it all
together and saying I can do all these things. I'm multifaceted.
Yeah.
I can create, but I also can be the personality. I can do it all. And it's interesting because throughout history of entertainment, and I'm not in entertainment obviously, but
you're not.
No, not at all. But the thing is, entertainment throughout the history of entertainment, there have been so many people that the greatest people in entertainment have been actually those people. I think that have been the creators, but also the personality. Those two things put together make probably the best people in the entertainment, now media, whatever you want to call it.
To
business.
your point, I think what it does, it's like it complements everything that you want to do. It works right, because before everything I just listed off, I'm a mother. That's my greatest source of creativity. That's my greatest source of encouragement. And it's also my greatest source of reeling me back in.
Reality checks.
There's nothing more, I don't know if it's ego squashing or
humbling.
Humbling, there you go. When you're 12-year-old, you crack a joke and your 12-year-old goes,
not good.
And I look at her and I go, what's going on?
Yeah.
And she's like, I just would have worked on the outro of that a little better.
Wow.
And instead of me taking that like, who do you think you are? And creating a quintessential chancleta moment.
Right.
I don't. I turn that into, oh my gosh, look what I just created. I created this kid who understands a joke.
Right, because that means you've taught them well. Yeah. Right? They wouldn't know any of that if you wouldn't have gone through.
I don't hear 1, 2, 3 there. It's too much 3 after that too. And I'm like, oh gosh, this is wonderful.
Wow.
Like she understands the science behind joke telling and storytelling. And she's a 7th grader in middle school.
It's amazing.
And those are things that to me, that's like my biggest accomplishment. Like the fact that my kid can do that. And I have that one, and my other child the middle school one is like the comedy snob. And then the 9-year-old is just, as my mom was saying, una bola de humo. She's insane and fun and creative and wild and, walks through this world with chocolate ice cream on her face.
Right.
And then the other one is very serious and controlled. And it's great. I feel like those are my best projects to date.
Excellent. Excellent. Yeah, family is important, definitely, and you, like, those are your greatest creations. I agree.
Yeah, they really are.
What, if and I think you've mentioned a couple things here, but maybe it will be the same, but maybe not. Who has been what has been your biggest inspiration? Has gotten you where you are today? You know, you talked about a little bit of those professors that kind of started that.
Yeah.
You've talked about your family, right? Your girls and your husband, and so that. But what else? Is there anybody else that you want to like that, or anybody else, or anything? Because it could be a thing, right? It could be a situation that happened, or you know, something that happened over the years, or it could be a person.
So I don't think like inspiration is, for me personally, it's not like, well, this has inspired me to be this person for the rest of my life. I think inspiration is seasonal.
Okay.
I think that there are seasons in your life where you're inspired by a life moment. For me, in my early years of discovery, of creative discovery, and knowing that I was a writer, and knowing that I had this gift early on in my life, it was the moment that I stumbled. I'm not joking. I stumbled into the film department at Dade North, like the TV, radio, production, like all that. It was me stumbling, like lost on campus and going, because months leading up to that, I was teaching myself commercial television and film writing by going to Barnes & Noble and just sitting there and checking out all these books and learning from what I feel are the greatest filmmakers in American history, from Spike Lee to Quentin Tarantino to Robert Rodriguez. Martin Scorsese is at the top of my list, and these are people that growing up, I admired their work without knowing. I knew everything about their movies, and I was like, okay, this is kind of where I want to be, you know? I grew up listening to Howard Stern. I grew up, you know, just in this world of a lot of 90s pop culture that, as we all know, kind of, you know, shaped where we are
definitely
creatively, culturally, in some regard.
They push the envelope in many ways, right?
Absolutely. And those are things that I was inspired early on in my life, you know? And then that turned into being completely obsessed with, you know, Amy Poehler and Tina Fey. And I know a lot of people aren't a fan of him, but I really admire Kanye West. I like how someone like him can create music and be, you know, creating shoes and jackets for the Gap. And that's always stuck in the back of my head. Or someone like J-Lo, who can sing and do all this, but then also has like a makeup line. So it's like I have seasons of creative inspiration, is what I'm trying to tell you.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And within those seasons, I have creative inspiration, and then I have personal inspiration. You know, my mom was diagnosed with breast cancer in December of last year, and I had to put everything on pause.
Right.
Because I cannot sit and create with that over me. Like I mentioned, I'm a structured creator.
Right.
So I do set aside time to write, and I do set aside time to learn about what I'm doing and what I'm creating. And we went through her mastectomy. We just finished 12 rounds of chemo.
Yes.
And all those things shifted my priorities. Because I'm her advocate, I'm taking care of her emotionally and you know, physically taking care of her. So she's been my inspiration.
That's great.
She's always been my inspiration, forever. My mom is a boss. But the past year and a half, that's where I've been kind of filling these holes that I never knew I had in me. I didn't know that there was holes in my story, if you will, until we went through that and currently are going through that.
So a lot of reflection.
Intense reflection.
A lot of time to reflect.
So much time to reflect, so much time to journal.
And sometimes it's hard, you know, I think maybe as you had to slow down because you wanted to focus on your mother, you know, and going through that, I think it, you know, sometimes we need to slow down a bit to do those reflections, right?
Yeah.
And it's kind of hard to reflect that deeply when we got so much going on.
It's interesting because like during COVID, I reflected on me. you know, and that's
But
when
still, it's
and then
still-
I was like, all right, that's a wrap.
It's enough reflecting on you.
I'm done. I know who I am, and I definitely don't want to work in an environment that doesn't 100% value my time monetarily, creatively. Like, it's just, so that was a big move for me. And now with Nena, my mom's name is Nena. Now with Nena, it's like, oh, okay, well, this is what's important, and this is more valuable to me, and these are the important people in my life. And it's not that I didn't know who's important in my life. It's not. I've always been about family.
Sure.
But this just kind of highlighted,
solidifies it.
solidified everything for me, and it was interesting. It was like, oh, okay, I almost cursed. This is it. This is what we're doing.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, so you have inspiration at different times, different seasons, people, situations, all that.
And sometimes I don't think I'm the only one that's working like that.
No, I think that's a very common thing. I think that it's hard to sometimes I even have to go back and think about, you know, you went back, 20-something years. Sometimes I have to think like that sometimes as well, because I'm really thinking about the last maybe couple of years. So yeah, I completely agree that there are those seasons.
You know, I have a lot of hippy dippity friends around me, and they're always like, you have to honor your inner child. And sometimes that sounds like a pain in the butt to listen, and for someone to tell you that, you're like, oh my God, please stop it. But there's something really true about that. There's something magical in that phrase. There's something, I mean, if you're stuck, you might want to go back 20 years and find out where you were 20 years ago, 10 years ago, depending on how old you are. You know, if you're in college right now, I want you to go back to like your junior year in high school. And I want you to think about where you were, what you were creating, who you were with, and now, fast forward to 2022.
Right.
Is it the same? Is it making you happy? Are you making a difference? And what you're doing, will it impact other people's lives in a positive or negative way? And I've always been a person for community and everything I do. And I'm telling you everything. I'm like, how is this gonna reflect? It's not that I care what people think. It's a very big difference. It's not what they think. I care more about, if you've been listening to me for 25 years, if you're following me on all these social media platforms, I don't want la confianza to die either.
Right.
And I want you to understand, like, you're not alone. If you're going through it, we're all going through it. Not everything is a vacation in Tulum. Real life is happening. And it's up to you whether you want to navigate, towards the sun or not.
So I think now, you're media personality, but I think now maybe it's like Lucy, the introspective person.
I don't know.
I think that might be your like introspective person, because that's a lot of introspection there, and those are great thoughts.
Thank you. Can I
so-
have water, please?
So what do you think about, you've talked, I think, a little bit right now. You almost got into my last question here, but I'm going to ask it anyway.
Sure.
So any words of wisdom for our audience?
Okay.
We have students out there, we have community members, obviously your fans. There's so many people out there that hopefully will watch this, right? And so what are your words of wisdom for them?
Drink lots of water before an interview. No. I think that almost landed. So I put God before everything. And my faith is massive. And sometimes it could be trying, because you grow impatient when you put those prayers out there and you're like, oh my gosh, am I gonna make it? Is this gonna happen? This is not gonna happen. Be patient with yourself. Show yourself some grace. I think there's a lot of pressure on being perfect and being manicured all the time, and I don't mean that like in the literal sense, and just falling into these boxes that either somebody created for you or you think that's your box to be in. Be free of those boxes. Look at life from outside the bubble whenever you get a chance. that's when you realize that you're not as different as you think from everybody else emotionally. And, it's better. The bird's eye view is better. You got to look at your life a little bit from the outside.
From the outside, yeah.
You have to.
We get consumed. Like I said, we get consumed with our daily and the things that we're trying to achieve on a day-to-day basis. But we have to kind of, take that other perspective.
I'm a crazy person. I wake up at 4:30 in the morning every day. And I wake up anywhere between 4:30 and 5, and I spent that hour doing intentional meditation.
That's great.
And then I have my cup of coffee, and then I reply to all my personal emails, personal texts, anything like that. Like, my friends know that I'm already up. They're like, "What are you doing?" And I'm like, if I don't function like this, then after 6 a.m., it's like I'm everybody else's.
Well, the world starts, right? You're trying to get up before the world starts.
I'm trying to get up before everybody else gets up so I can get my day started, my life moving, Because I got my babies to take care of, my husband, the dog. I do all that stuff before 6 a.m. And then after 6 a.m., I'm everybody else's.
Okay.
Yeah. So just show yourself some grace, because we can be really hard on each other and on yourself and other people. Like, chill. It's going to happen. Believe in yourself.
So we will chill.
Yeah.
We will chill.
Chill.
Yeah. Well, those are great words of wisdom.
Thank you.
And Lucy, I want to thank you for joining us today and keeping up with Kendall. And great that you finally made it to the Kendall campus.
I know, bro.
And we're really happy to have you here. And I want to wish you the best. And also to your mom, that everything works out. And I know she's doing great. So let's keep going in that direction. And again, keep doing the great things you do in our community.
Thank you so much. Before I go, I just have 2 words for Kendall.
Sure.
Bro, Kendall. That's it.
That's it? That's
it.
Okay.
Those are my 2 words for Kendall.
Well, thank you, Lucy.
Enjoy it.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And thank you for joining us on this episode of Keeping Up with Kendall. See you next time.